What is up guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing a deck profile for vampires. I figure since we're still in October we may as well just do an extra zombie deck, and that would be the vampire deck I have here. So very glad that I've updated this, because last time we did do a vampire deck we didn't have this new card over here from Ghost of the Past. So the fact that we have this now, it's going to be very exciting to pretty much see what changes are made in this particular deck. And of course, once we get to the test hands, you guys will get to see how it actually plays out. But if you guys do enjoy this video, definitely consider dropping a like, share, comment and subscribe. It also really just helps if you hit that bell notification too. But with that being said, let's begin. So starting off with the monsters here, we're going to be playing 2 copies of the Vampire Voivode. This is the new card that came out from Ghost from the Past, of course, so I'm going to be reading out the effect just because it's a new card that's been added in. So if this card is normal summon, you could target up to 2 monsters in your opponent's graveyard and special summon to the field, both of them in defense position. But their effects are negated. When a monster's effect is activated while a monster with the same name is in the graveyard, as a quick effect you can negate the activation. Thirdly, if a monster is special summoned from the opponent's graveyard, you contribute 2 monsters special summon this card from your graveyard. I really like that particular last effect just because of how powerful it actually is to bring this out so easily. It kind of reminds me of the Balladrock for the regular pure zombies, so seeing that is definitely a really nice addition for the deck. But it does make this a really amazing card, adding a potential negate to it, so when you're going for your combos you at least have something to go for. Of course, we shouldn't be surprised that 3 copies of Scarlet Scourge is still quite a crucial card. I'm also playing only 2 copies of Fraulein. 3 is a bit much, but 2 is definitely a really good number. It's just because she's a vampire that it works so much better in this than pure zombies. So in a pure zombie deck I would normally play 1, but in a vampire deck you could definitely play 2 without any issue, just because she is searchable, she's able to be brought out by other vampires. It just fits out really well. Next up, I'm playing here the 1 copy of Shadow Vampire. It's no surprise that I'm only playing the 1 copy, just because you can't attack. It's quite a big restriction, so ideally you want to pull this off in the very first turn, but if it needs to be pulled off in a latter turn, I guess it isn't really too big of a deal. Now next up, this might be a bit interesting for you guys, but I'm playing 3 copies of Familiar, but only 2 copies of Retainer. Normally I'd play 3 copies of both, but the issue is sometimes I just find myself not needing them as much as I want, and they're both pretty much just the weaker monsters out there. So although they do search out, it just depends on your preferences. Familiar will search out your vampire monsters, Retainer searches out your spells and traps. In this case, I just don't find myself searching out the spells and traps as much. And also, Familiar is a level 1, so it can be special summoned via 1-for-1, giving it a bit more versatility in this particular build as opposed to Retainer. And finally, we're playing the 1 copy of Sorcerer. I decided to just play 1 copy. There was no need to really play any more than that, just because you had to try and get this card to the graveyard anyway. So with that being said, it was a bit more of a slower option for me to play so many of these. 1 was just enough for me to get the job done. Now as for the non-vampires, we gotta play some generic zombie support. So we're playing 2 copies of Solitaire, and I'm also playing 3 copies of Unizombie. We don't need to max it out as much in a pure build, but at least with this it still works out quite amazingly to play 5 copies of the Unizombie essentially, but it does help you get cards to the graveyard. And of course I'm playing here the 2 copies of Mizuki and 1 Gozuki, just a really nice engine to play in, but since it's not a pure build I'm not going to be playing 3 copies of Mizuki and 2 copies of Gozuki, just playing enough to give the deck a bit of spice. And finally I'm playing the 1 copy of Jacobolan as well, just because it could act during the opponent's turn, allowing you to bring out your new boss monster from the graveyard, which is absolutely amazing. But yeah, with that being said, this is pretty much it for the monsters, so let's move on to the spells. So for the spells, I'm playing 3 copies of Domain, and I'm also playing 2 copies here of Desire. Just this is the ratio I'm comfortable with. Personally, I think Domain is just a card that really needs to be at 3, and if you have one out on the board, normally the opponent wants to hit it after they find out what it could actually do. So for that reason, 3 doesn't seem like a bit too much or anything like that. It is definitely a really nice number to have. Desire, I find myself only needing to play 2, never needing to go for a third one. And if you can't win after using your second one, well, it's probably best you just rely on some other cards instead. However, for one-offs, we're playing the Vampire Kingdom. Thought I'd just add it in. It's really nice anyway to boost up your zombie monsters, but even so, I guess it doesn't really hurt to play one of these. We're also playing the Caught by the Grave, the Monster Reborn, and also the 1-for-1 for our Familiar. So this is just all really generic, but very nice support as well for the deck. And of course, being a dark deck, we're playing here 2 copies of Super Poly, giving us quite a bit of variety to go for, but of course plenty of cards to discard to the graveyard as fodder for Super Poly as well. Also using your opponent's monsters, a great amount of options available. And as for traps, I figure I've seen decks that play 3 copies, or rather they fully max out their Solemn Brigade, so why not just max out on the Dominations? It's essentially the same thing except it's for vampires. So yeah, definitely very powerful there. And I'm also playing here the 1 copy of Awakening, also a really fantastic card, but you only need 1 copy of it. And I'm finally playing 2 copies of the Swallow's Slash, because it just allows you to pop 2 cards on the field. Great disruptor. As for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 1 copy of Sucker. I wish I had a second copy, I would definitely add it in, but I will be playing here the Avenged Savior, kind of like as an alternative to the second copy of Sucker. But you know what, sometimes it does work out well. During the damage step, the Avenged Savior does do its job. But with that being said, I'm playing here 2 copies of the Dampier Vampire. Maybe you don't need to play 2 copies of it, but I just felt that it was something that might work out a bit easily in this particular build. And of course we have over here our Vampire Brahm, just 1 copy because it does have a bit of a restriction. Now as for Synchros, we're playing just a good variety of cards that we could easily go to. We are playing Uni-Zombie after all, so these are just my favourite options to go for here. All really amazing. Chaos Ruler has been the new great addition into the deck as well, just working out really well. Void Ogre being a great disruption. Beals, great card for the opponent to just try to get over. Of course it's going to be very difficult for them. Shogun Saga, great for turn 2, and Zombie Necro, same thing applies. Finally, for some more Link support, I guess, we're just playing the Unicorn and the Masquerina. Both are just my preferences. You could play whatever links you feel more comfortable with. The extra deck is pretty flexible, so you could definitely adjust it in your particular liking. But I'm also playing over here my Super Poly targets. It's up to you what you want to play in the deck itself, but these are the ones that I will be using the most in my particular community. However, this was pretty much it for today's deck profile, so I do hope you guys enjoyed this one. I will be doing some test hands, but with that being said, thanks for joining me today. I hope you all have a sensational day. I'll see you all next time.